You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hey, this is John Preston, Marine Combat Veteran and Pacific Records recording artist. Just reaching out to have you check out our new album, Battle Cry, Songs of America's Heroes, an album featuring phenomenal other combat veteran artists like Scott Brown of the Scooter Brown Band, Ryan Weaver, Rowdy Johnson, just an incredible mix of people. This is all veterans telling our stories and our lives, and we're giving 100% of our proceeds to the Valkyrie Initiative to help veterans and first responders integrate back into society. I myself have battled with post-traumatic stress for many years and lost my own brother, a Marine Corps veteran, to suicide. I ask that you step with us and make this happen. We are in pre-order right now and release on March 17th. Go to iTunes, go to Amazon, buy. We plan on making the charts and making it at a very high level, and your support right now makes a difference. This is the release of my new song, Superman Falls, which is actually about the loss of my own brother, which happened last year, and I would love for everyone to check it out, to listen, and hopefully it'll make a difference in many lives.
Here's George Foreman with InventHelp.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee a company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
Get your free inventor's information. Call 1-800-353-6490. That's 1-800-353-6490. Again, 1-800-353-6490.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687. 8687.
Sometimes we need to slow down and remember the simple pleasures in life. Good coffee, good books, and good company. Come on in. Take a seat. The coffee's just been brewed. Let's see who we have in the coffee shop today. Well, today I was told I'm not looking for a book. I'm looking for a bound manuscript. That's going to be interesting. There it is. And that means I've also found David Brown, Deputy Director of Publicity for Atria Books. Now, David, before we start the formal thing, what's the manuscript you're reading there?
This is Red War, which is the next Mitch Rapp book, and the galleys aren't ready yet, so I'm reading the manuscript. This is Vince Flynn's character, but the books have been taken over by Kyle Mills, a fantastic writer, after the unfortunate and untimely death of the creator, Vince Flynn.
Well, I have to admit, as much as I'm a Brad Thor fan, I am also a Vince Flynn fan, so this could be fascinating. Might have to try and sneak that manuscript off with me, though.
I'm going to guard it with my life. I learned from Mitch Rapp.
So, you are the Deputy Director of Publicity. That's gotta be a hectic job.
It's hectic. It's very different every day. I get to become an expert on a lot of different things. It's a lot of fun.
Expert on a lot of different things, like what? Give me some examples here.
Oh, well, I can work on a book about, in the season, I've done books about aliens, books about the Golden State Warriors, a book about a military dog. So in the process of figuring out how to pitch all those things and to different media and to find the media and to learn about it, to speak intelligently about it and to have read the book, you get to become a mini expert in a lot of different subjects.
What is some of the things that your authors do that you absolutely love when they do? Or do they ever come to you and say, hey, I've been offered this opportunity, can you set it up for me? Or what can they do that actually makes you smile?
What can they do that makes me smile? There's so much they can do that could make me smile. One thing that is if they are a cooperative author, someone who likes to work in tandem with their publicist and to be open to new opportunities and to try new things. I'll give you an example, and not to bring up Vince Flynn again, but it's a pretty good example. There was one year I thought it would be fun where we would hold a contest for Vince Flynn's fans where they would enter into a drawing to have Vince call them on the telephone and have a short conversation. One-on-one contact with a fan, personal contact with a fan, something that is unheard of for a celebrity and someone that worships them. So we pitched it. I pitched this idea to Vince, and he was open to it. It's not something that he was incredibly comfortable with. He would have to take an hour out of his time to speak to about 30 or 40 different people in 10-minute conversations or so, 5 to 10-minute conversations. But he was open to it, and he was willing to try, and he was going to give it his best, and he was going to see how a new way of promoting something could work. It's never been tested, so there was no evidence that I could put in front of him to say how well it works or how it moves product. But he was willing to give it a try. So someone who is so when authors are gung-ho, willing to try anything, and open to new ideas, that puts a giant smile on my face.
I bet. Now, how does social media impact your job?
Social media impacts my job both positively and negatively. I run the Atria Mystery Bus on Twitter, and I have such a fun time engaging with the readers and engaging with the authors and finding funny ways to promote the books and interesting ways to promote the books and to connect readers with the books that I work with and the authors that I work with. That's fun. I love it when authors show their personality and share a little piece of their life on social media. That makes them human. That makes them closer to their fans. That makes the fans and the readers feel more invested in their favorite authors, and it makes them more apt to recommend them. That's fun. Negatively is trying to talk the authors that I work with through the pitfalls that social media can create, traps when tackling controversial subjects, the concept of read it back, think about it before you hit send, because it's going out into the ether and it's never going to go away. There are pitfalls and there are things that you have to be careful with. We've seen time and time again, and over the last year, 2 years, how social media could destroy someone's career.
I bet. Now, the most common platform seems to be Twitter. Are there other platforms that you tend to engage readers and authors on?
I concentrate on Twitter. That's just me. But Instagram is fantastic. Instagram is a great way of connecting to readers. Jack Carr. Jack Carr is a former Navy SEAL. I work with him. I know you've had him on the show. He spent his entire career in the shadows, not being public. Then he becomes an author, and I asked him to join social media, which is totally against his nature. But he has been so good on Instagram. It's as if he was a teenage girl. He knows exactly what types of things get people to get engaged. He posts great content. So Instagram is a fantastic venue. Facebook is okay. I don't love Facebook. It's tough to get a following on Facebook. Facebook is all pay for play. I'm not a huge Facebook fan, though I do invest in the company because it is pay for play and they do make a lot of money. Twitter I like because of the constant back and forth engagement.
So you're behind the Atrium Mystery Bus Twitter handle.
That is true.
I'll bet that's a fun adventure, never knowing what the books fans are going to be tweeting about next.
It's fun, yeah. I like to track exactly what the fans are talking about, what they're saying to my authors, what my authors are saying back to them. I like to spread the great reviews that my authors get out into the ether and share it. I love to engage in conversations. And then you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes we see someone will send me a tip that says one of your book's galleys is being sold on eBay. And then we launch an investigation and we try to shut that down. It's fun. I get into it. I get a little bit too into it. I'm obsessed. I'm on it a lot, especially when I shouldn't be working. I'm on my phone on my Atrium Mystery Bus Twitter feed seeing what's going on. So it's fun, but I probably do it too much.
Now, everyone always sees certain authors, especially they tend to show up on the morning shows, the day of a book release or the day after a book launch. How far in advance do you have to be planning to set those types of things up?
Great question, because that is changing big time. When I first started in this industry, and I've been with Atria since 2005, and before that I was at HarperCollins. So I've been doing even though I look like I'm in my 20s, I've been doing this since the 90s, the late 90s, Jesse, not the early 90s, all right? And back when I started, couldn't get a morning show booked 6 months before the book comes out. As time has gone on, there are times where we don't know what day Brad Thor is doing the Today Show until 2 days before or a week before, and I think part of it is social media, part of it is the immediacy of news, and this current news cycle has been so insane for the past 2 years that nobody is willing to commit until they know what is going to be going on the next day. So it's really, really stressful to get tours together and bookings together, especially for the national media, because they're really literally tweet by tweet is how they book their show.
Now, with an author like Brad Thor, who can speak on multiple topics like terrorism and things like that, it must be a little bit easier because he does have that diversity. And
it's easier. It's easier in the sense that that when there is something for him to talk to and I talk about and I offer it up, they're very willing to have him on. But still, we don't know what that's going to be. Sadly, there are terrorist attacks all the time. We don't know when it's going to happen, but when it does, they're looking for Brad Thor to comment on it. But we have to be quick. We have to be by our phones when they're asking for him. So it's easier in that I'm not begging to have him on, but it's also always a last minute thing.
How does that impact things like the book signing schedule? And because that's announced months in advance. In fact, I've already picked out what Brad Thorpe book signing I'm going to.
Oh, fantastic. And knowing that, I can expect fantastic pictures because you are great at covering these book signings on social media. But how does it impact? Well, book signings, we do have to set up months and months in advance because other authors are looking for the same dates that we are. There are tons of authors traveling around the country at the same time, and there are several bookstores that are just so good at doing events for these types of authors that I work on, predominantly the thriller, the mystery. You can look at Houston's Murder by the Book, and in Scottsdale, Arizona, there's Poison Pen, to name a few. And every one of these authors in these genres, they want to get their books signing event at those places. So it's a little competitive to get the date that you want. So you have to do that in advance. Luckily, the most of the media is not necessarily during the time that the events would be going on. A lot of the media is during the day. There's some at night, and there are times where we have a book signing and an invitation to Fox News, and we have to go to the book signing because we've made a commitment. And if we're lucky, we can do Fox News the day before or the day after.
Okay, so the book signing schedule is kind of set in stone, and you have to plan everything else around it.
You kind of do, but it's never a problem, especially this day and age where the media won't commit early enough anyway. So we kind of have to do it. And once we make a commitment with a bookstore, it would take something incredibly major, catastrophic, not to keep that commitment, because at the end of the day, and I was trying to think of something better to say. I hate when people say at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, it's really about the readers, and so we're not going to disappoint the readers. People that are coming into the bookstore to meet the author, we're not going to tell the author that you have to go do a TV interview instead.
Now, with these authors that you get onto TV, do you always have to get them to the main studio, or do you sometimes have other options, like get them to a network affiliate?
Oh, yeah. A lot of times they do it via satellite, for sure. Especially for late-breaking news, we get the author to whatever affiliate is in their city where they live or where they happen to be at the time.
Have you ever had to call an author on vacation and say, so-and-so really wants you on air, and I think this would be a great opportunity. Can you do it?
I do not remember something that specific, though I know I've called authors on vacation and gave them good news about a future booking, but I do not remember a specific time where I pulled an author off of vacation to do an interview.
Conversely, when authors are in the middle of writing, you don't necessarily want to distract them from that process. So do you turn down bookings during that time?
Yes. Unfortunately, it's the most painful thing for a publicist to do is to turn down bookings. But there are times where authors are deep in research, deep in writing, where they just can't do it when the particular television show wants them or radio show wants them. They just can't do it. Because the authors have deadlines themselves and they have to meet. So they have a job to do. We can't distract them from that. They have to make their deadline. Otherwise, we have nothing. Does
the size of the outlet ever impact that decision?
I would say so. I think if a giant show would come calling, I think... now, I never decline an interview without checking with the author first. I may advise them this one is not one that you should do during this time because you're under deadline. I may advise them that, if we pass them up now, they'll likely do it for us when the book comes out. And I may advise them that, this is a shot you got to take now. I know you're under pressure to write these 2 chapters, but it is worth it. You have to do it.
I've read about some of your authors doing things that are just absolutely incredible, like riding in limos with presidents and shaking hands with presidents. And a lot of that stuff doesn't make the mainstream. You have to dig around for that information. Is that something you try and take advantage of, or do you leave it to the author's discretion if they want to try and make hay out of it? Or how do you handle those amazing meetings?
I leave it up to the author. Anything amazing like that is great for me as a publicist. I would love to make a lot of noise with it. And I know with Vince Flynn meeting George Bush and meeting him in the Oval Office, we didn't make a lot of hay with that. But there are times where authors want to keep things to themselves, keep things personal. They don't want to take advantage of something for publicity, and that's their choice. And it's a really good choice sometimes when it's the right choice. So I leave that up to the author to decide whether to make hay of something.
All right. And I've actually found out about that particular meeting in the Oval Office through a mutual friend of yours, actually.
Oh, are you allowed to tell me who it is?
The Real Book Spy.
Oh, yes. Ryan Steck, the Real Book Spy, is a tremendous advocate for thrillers and mysteries. He's come on the scene and he has taken a stranglehold of this genre in terms of being the go-to place for reviews and recommendations for mysteries and thrillers. There's no question about it. He saw a lacking in the atmosphere, and he filled that void, and he filled it well. And I'm surprised it wasn't filled before. I'm surprised other people aren't after this space, but he is the one and only right now, and it's going to be a lot for anyone to unseat him at this point, because he is everybody's go-to.
Now, you're pretty genre specific, mysteries, thrillers, things like that. Do you ever get consulted or called into books that are just way out of your genre? Like you mentioned previously, aliens and basketball and things like that. Do you ever get called in to consult on books or to help publicize books that are not part of the Atrium Mystery Bus?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would say I'm probably 75% mystery thriller, 25% other. So I do a lot of other genres as well.
Now, writers tend to group together and cluster together, and you can always tend to find, they'll get together or they know each other and they've contacted each other and gotten together on the side. And agents tend to do the same thing. Is that true about publicists? You guys obviously don't have formal conventions, at least not that I've heard of. But do you guys compare notes and crosstalk and talk to each other behind the scenes?
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I was at Simon Schuster's 2005. And that's a real rarity in this industry. Most people are jumping around every 3 or 4 years. So I've worked with people and know people at all the houses, and we do compare notes at times and talk about our triumphs and talk about what is hard and what is working and what is changing, for sure. And we do that at the same conventions that the authors do. We do that at the Boucher Cons and the Thriller Fests. It's a fun community.
I will say the writing community does tend to epitomize that word community. Because
yeah, especially the mystery thriller genre and the romance genre. Oh, I mean, and obviously the communities are separate, but they are tight knit and they are really supportive of each other. It's really fun to watch.
I knew about Jack Carr's book before you ever mentioned to me about having him in the coffee shop because, well, I follow Brad Thor on Twitter.
And what Brad Thor did for Jack Carr, he could have stopped at sending the book or asking his editor to look at the book. He could have stopped at that, but he didn't. He continued to promote and to recommend that book to all his readers, and it's probably going to go down as one of the most generous author-to-author scenarios that could ever happen. And it's a real blessing that Brad did that, and it was for a worthy guy. Jack Carr is a fantastic guy, a hero, an American hero, and it's a great book. So if Brad Thor was taking one shot, he took the shot with the right guy.
Now, as a publicist, have you ever had to deal with someone kind of like Jack Carr who didn't have much social media or didn't want to get involved in social media? Do you help them create the accounts and create their platform, or how do you handle that when you get someone who doesn't have that social media present?
If they don't have it and they don't want to do it, I don't advise it because it's only as good as you are. If you're not into it, you're not going to be good at it. It's going to be a waste of space and a waste of your time. But if it's something that they're interested in pursuing and doing, I would work with them to give them best practices and to give them hints along the way. Jack Carr is very eager to get out there. He wanted to be the best at it, and he is working his way towards that. He is for someone who spent an entire life in the shadows and not wanting to be seen. He is remarkably deft at social media.
Are there any social media platforms that you recommend that authors just flat out avoid?
No. I don't think so.
Haven't met one yet you didn't like.
I mean, I don't particularly like Facebook for author promotion or author interaction with writers, but I don't see it as a danger spot. I think that I don't see one as one that is one to avoid. Either you pick one and concentrate on it fully. If you have the capacity to concentrate on more than one fully, go for it. If you don't have the capacity to do it at all, don't do it. It's really something that is personal to the author. If they want to do it and they can do it, do it. If not, don't, because there's nothing worse than someone who's bad at social media. It comes off as phony. And the one thing I will advise is don't have someone else running your social media. Readers and people on social media are by now savvy enough to tell the difference, and it just looks bad.
So don't hire that social media manager.
You could hire someone to advise you, but don't have someone pretending to be you. That's what I would say. Don't have someone pretending to be you.
Okay, well, that's interesting advice. Now, do you guys, as being part of the publicist, do you ask your authors for access to their social media feeds, or do you leave that entirely in their hands?
Totally in their hands.
Okay.
Totally in their hands. That's appropriate, and plus, I don't want to be responsible for what some people say.
I can understand that. I've seen some interesting comments on social media. Not necessarily from authors, but I've seen some doozies.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it can ruin a career. It's probably more likely to ruin a career than to make a career, and people should think about that.
It seems like in this modern day of social media that things go around the world in nanoseconds.
Yeah, like that PR executive who was flying to Australia. This was a few years ago, and she made, I believe, a joke about Africa and AIDS before she took off. And before she landed, she was fired.
That's inconceivable 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Now, when you're trying to take that unknown author, and we'll use Jack Carr as an example, because no one heard of him a year ago, and make them essentially a well-known author, does the quality of the book matter, or are you depending on the book to be good by the time it hits your desk?
The quality of the book does matter, because we know the quality of the book before we get going on an unknown author. So if the unknown author comes around and the quality of the book is not there, we're not going to put a full court press. I mean, first of all, we probably wouldn't get the book. We wouldn't buy the book. We wouldn't publish the book if it wasn't up to snuff. But the quality of the book is first. Then we know that it's worth putting the effort, the time, and the money in building a brand and a brand new author and developing name recognition. And it's one of my favorite parts of the job is starting from scratch.
Do you ever have to rebrand authors? Do they ever suddenly decide, if Brad Thor suddenly decided, not that he has decided, he's still writing thrillers, but if he ever decided to change genres, how could you rebrand someone like that's become a household name with a genre?
Yeah, it's interesting. You can, and a lot of times you have to. There are authors that write in different genres. Look at David Baldacci. I think he writes some Nicholas Sparks style books, and they do it. And Brad Meltzer is coming out with his first nonfiction book pretty soon, and they're going to make that work. And I know Meltzer does children's books. I worked with Jodi Picoult, who is obviously a different genre, but she started writing some kids' books. And you got to do it. It's difficult. There are pros and cons, but it's possible, and it can be done well.
We've mentioned social media so much, we focused on it because it does impact your job every day.
Yeah.
What are the absolute pitfalls that you would suggest aspiring writers and authors avoid?
Avoid?
Yes.
Avoid selling your book. Avoid being, it's not a advertising venue. Don't sell your book. Engage, interact. Of course, you can mention that you're an author and talk about writing and the process and what it's like, and you could talk about your book, but don't be overly selly. It's going to turn people off. It turns me off. I would not advise anyone to. And I've heard it different ways. 3-to-1, where 3 non-selly posts to 1 selly post for every 4. I mean, I don't know if I buy into that. I think if you are if you develop a personality through social media and you engage and you interact and you're interesting, people will be interested in what you produce. You don't have to force it down their throat.
So every tweet should not be either a retweet of someone else's thoughts and ideas or buy my book.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. The buy my book tweets should be few and far between. Retweeting people's praise about you should also be few and far between. Engage. Give something. Make it worth the while to follow someone. You wouldn't follow someone who's just trying to... I mean, imagine in real life, your best friend, all they do is sit on a park bench next to you and try to sell you things. You're not going to be their friend. But if they're sitting there telling you interesting facts and telling you stories, you want to be their friend. It's the same thing. Gosh, I would unfollow someone so quickly if all they're doing is tweeting out their 5-star reviews from Amazon.
So how far in advance do you start promoting a book? How far in advance before you tweet out that cover reveal or before you tweet out that book blurb?
Yeah, it's very different for each different campaign, each different book. There are times you want to get a year out start to build something that no one's ever heard of before and build it up big. There are times where there's a book a year author like a Brad Thor where you're never not tweeting about him or talking about him, and it just quietly goes from the previous book to the next book. So there's no rhyme or there's no set formula. It's different for every book and every author and every campaign. And
I've noticed the pictures that I emailed you yesterday have made it onto Twitter.
That's right. I treat Twitter, at least I treat my Atrium Mystery Bus. I think of myself, the Atrium Mystery Bus, as the TMZ for my authors. I want to cover my authors, and I want all the things that have to do with my authors to be newsworthy and spit out from my Twitter feed. That's the way I think of it. Everyone does, and again, I told you I'm obsessed with the Twitter, so I probably think about it too much. But that's my philosophy.
All right. Well, we have reached the point in the show where we are going to pay those radio station bills. So
make some money.
Everybody's got to. So I'm going to pour you a cup of coffee, and we will see you on the other side.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your healthcare? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their healthcare. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your healthcare, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your healthcare while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
Thank you for hanging in there with us while we paid those radio station bills. Now I'm going to pour myself a fresh cup of coffee. And speaking of coffee, David, I've got to ask, what is your favorite coffee shop treat?
I like a good Danish.
Oh, you can't go wrong with a good Danish.
Yeah, I like a good Danish. Followed by maybe a nice biscotti.
Oh, biscotti's a wonderful invention, and I swear most Americans don't get enough of it.
Oh, it's very dippable. Very dippable into coffee. Great treat for a coffee shop.
Now, we've already mentioned Ryan Steck, who's cornered the market on reviews for this genre. Who are your other advocates that you turn to for this genre that you just think are absolutely indispensable?
There's a guy in Atlanta who's worked for several bookstores over the years. He also runs Books for Heroes, where he sends books to the troops. George Scott. He loves thrillers, loves mysteries. He can talk about them endlessly. When he organizes an event for one of the bookstores that he's worked for, or for Books for Heroes, he does amazing events. He brings in the people. A lot of people trust his opinion. If he tells someone to read a book, they'll read the book. And if he tells someone you got to come meet this author, they'll come meet the author. He's a great advocate for this genre. And I'm sending Matthew Bentley there later this month. Brad Thor is going to be with George Scott at a George Scott Books for Heroes event in July. He's terrific.
Well, it's great to hear that someone else knows George Scott. He is an amazing person. And yes, listeners, I have met this man named George Scott.
He's great, right?
He is, and I've read several books on his recommendation.
Yeah, I think he's definitely helped build a lot of my authors' profiles just in that area, because he has such a great a group of people that value his opinion, and he's built that up a reputation of knowing the mystery and thriller genre so well that people trust him. And luckily, he's liked a lot of the books and authors that I've worked with, so he's recommended them. And we've had lots of great events with it. George Scott is indispensable.
Well, that's always good to hear. And yes, he has quite a following, and seems to be an influencer in this genre.
Yeah, I just want him to tweet more. I think he's gotten better at it, but I want him to do more.
Well, who knows? Maybe he'll hear this interview. We'll have to make sure it appears on his Twitter feed.
That's right. We'll force him to listen to it and to tweet about it.
Now, back to social media and traditional publication, because my requirements for getting on Coffee Shop are pretty simple. You are, or will be, an author. There's this lag between when a book's done and when traditional publishing puts it out. Is a lot of that due to publicity, or what goes into the behind the scenes stuff that we don't know about?
Why it takes so long for a book once completed to be published?
Exactly.
A lot of it is getting it right. We want to pick the right time of the year. We want to make sure that the landscape is open for it to succeed. In other words, we don't want to put a Brad Thor book out in the same week that a Lee Child book is out, because we don't want to give anybody a hard choice to make. We want the people who are fans of both those big authors to be able to get both those books and not have to choose on a specific Tuesday which one they want. We want to get the cover right. We want to, again, yes, book events, which we have to do months in advance to get the dates that we want. And we want to make sure that the magazines and the newspapers get an ample time to read it and decide if they want to review it, and then write their reviews and get it published in time to align with the publication of the book. So that's why we don't necessarily get the book from the author, slap a cover on it, and put it right out.
Now, with self-publishing becoming more of a thing, do you ever get an author who was self-published and now they're traditionally published? And do you have to explain to them, it's not going to be out in 6 weeks?
Yeah, it is tough for self-published authors to get used to that type of schedule, because they're used to writing and hitting submit and having it for sale. But they understand why, and they get a lot of benefits, not the least of which is money from a publisher. But there are a lot of other benefits to waiting and getting it done right, and seeding the market, and having our salespeople get to go out to all the bookstores and talk to the booksellers and talk up the book and explain why they should order copies for their store. There's a lot that goes into a publication of a book, and and there's a lot of benefit that a traditional publisher can give an author that you can't get when you're a self-published author.
Have you ever seen a book in the genres you cover with Atrium Mystery Book that was self-published get taken over by traditional publication?
I have not worked on one of those. Going back in my brain database, I can't think of one that has come to me in that way.
Now, every author has to have a publicity photo and an author website in this day and age. It's just unavoidable. What are your suggestions and comments about author publicity photos? I mean, obviously, they get used sometimes for years. And do you encourage the author to do something traditional, the suit and tie in front of the white background, or something that shows their personality hanging out by a tree, or something more fun? What do you suggest that authors do with their publicity photos?
I think the author should sit down, close their eyes, picture themselves being featured in People magazine, think about what the picture looks like, and that's the photo they should take.
Have you ever had a publicity photo that was just, this needs to be redone?
Well, I won't say who, but there are some authors that have used the same publicity photos for 30 years, and they look young on the back of the book, and when you meet them in person, they are not that young. So I would try to keep your photos as close to reality or current reality as possible.
Basically, you want the fans to be able to recognize you from the photo on the back of the book.
Yes, same rule applies to dating websites.
That's an interesting analogy. I hadn't thought about that one. Dating websites and publicity.
Yeah, and a coffee shop is a great place to talk about books and for a first date.
Well, why do you think I suggested Jesse's Coffee Shop for the title for my podcast?
Oh.
Lots of authors write in coffee shops. Lots of books get read in coffee shops.
William Ken Kruger writes his books in a coffee shop, for sure. Always has. He's famous for it.
Outstanding. Now, with all the social media stuff that goes out and all the traditional stuff, when the publisher decides this is an author, we'll just use a Brad Thor for an example. When the publisher finally decides to get behind an author and give it the, quote, full court press, for lack of a better term, what does that actually look like, and how much of the author's time does that take up?
Again, it's different for every author. Brad Thor, if we were using him as an example, is very personable. So you would want to use him in media and in bookstores to meet people. There are other authors that may not be their strength, and there are other things that they can do, like writing op-eds or writing guest posts for literary websites. But the idea is getting attention for them and getting them out there in a way that the author is comfortable with. I wouldn't put an author that is not strong socially out on a television program where it'll make them look bad. And I wouldn't put an author who perhaps doesn't have a idea for an op-ed. I wouldn't force them into writing an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal. I would use the author's strengths to make them to put them in the best possible light to succeed.
So you have to get to know these authors on a pretty individual level.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody is different in the world. Everybody is different in the book world. Absolutely. And anyone who tells you that they have the formula for publicity, they're lying to you, because you have to know exactly the book, the author, the time you're living in, the time the book is coming out. There are so many variables, and no publicity campaign is the same. You could have the same author 2 years in a row, and the campaign is different, depending on what's going on in the world, what the book is about, and what the author's strengths or developed strengths maybe they have over the past year.
I've noticed some authors do 5 or 6 book signings and that's it, while others authors will do 10 or 12. Is this all entirely up to the author, or does the publisher have a lot to say about it?
It's joint decisions. Nothing is done. Nothing is done without it being a team effort, a team decision. We talk about everything. If an author wants something that we don't agree with, we would find out why they want it. Maybe they'll turn us around, vice versa.
So something like Books for Heroes, was there ever a time you've actually turned down an invitation to a charity event or something because you thought it would be bad publicity for an author?
I don't think a Books for Heroes event would be bad publicity for anybody.
Neither do I, but I'm a military spouse. Come on. I've got
I don't see how that could be bad for anybody. Have I turned down something? I think I would. Yeah, I've turned down interviews that perhaps a particular author I don't think should be aligned with a particular host or point of view or website. Or, I mean, this day and age, there's a lot of craziness out there. So a good publicist will be protective over the author. Perhaps the author doesn't even know what he's getting, or he or her are getting themselves into, and we troubleshoot that kind of thing.
Well, I guess it's a good thing I don't do book reviews, and I just pretty much let the authors speak their mind.
Yeah, your coffee shop's a pretty safe place.
I try and keep it that way, too, because I like to encourage all authors to join me in the coffee shop, because it's fun. Now, do you get, with podcasts becoming more of a thing, do you get a lot more requests for podcasts and internet radio than you used to?
Yeah, and there's a lot of... It adds a lot of work, because I have to listen to everything before I put an author onto it to make sure that it's a safe place. So it's a lot of I listen to a lot of bad radio. Unfortunately, there are a lot of internet radio hosts or podcasters that are not as polished as you are.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you. I do my best, and I always try and make sure that the end result is something that's going to make that author, whoever they are, proud. And I put a lot of work in, believe it or not, behind the scene. Not necessarily on publicity, but taking out little things that they did or said. Or there was only one time I've edited an author, and I'm not going to say who, but it was actually one of yours. They said something on air that I didn't think should go out. So I took that out because I felt that was just too personal.
Well, I look forward to the editing that you do in order to make me sound smart. I appreciate it in advance.
Well, that's why it's part of why I don't schedule air dates until I actually have the recorded interview. Very rarely will I break that rule because I don't want to give a date away to a publicist, no offense, no matter what company they're with, until I have that recorded audio. Because I don't want to have a week come by and I suddenly don't have a show because that author got laryngitis.
Yeah, fair policy. Fair policy.
Now, I will say it's not so much a problem here in the Northern Hemisphere right now while it's summer, but I work with authors all around the world. And there's another show I produce called Conversations in Science, and our host is in New Zealand. And she came down with the worst case of laryngitis you can imagine. And she literally couldn't talk for close to 2.5 weeks.
Oh, my.
And I just don't want to have... I've got my own reputation to protect as having new content every week. Yes, I do my replays on Mondays with the blog posts, but there's also that expectation that I've built up among my loyal listeners that there'll be a new book to talk about. Now, we've done a lot of talking about the publicity. what are some of the books? I know you've got to have a list. You've got to give me 3 books. Actually, we'll make it 4. 2 that are out and 2 that are coming out. And you can't use the book that I've asked you to give me at the end to read that you want to mention just because you like them, you love them, you think they're fantastic, you promote them. Any reason in the world, but you got to tell me why with each book.
Well, first, let me say that every book and every author that I work with happens to be my favorite book and author. Okay?
No problem.
So you're looking for 2 books, one that's out.
2 that are out. I'm looking for 2 that are out and 2 that are coming out.
2 books that are out and 2 that are coming out, and not necessarily mine?
You can make them all Atria.
Oh, you want them to be all Atria? Okay.
You don't have to. It's up to you.
Okay. 2 books that are out now. I got to think about what's out now because I'm working so far in advance that I have to stop and think about it. One book that's coming out, which is a pretty good serial killer book, it happens to be one that I'm working on, is called Find You in the Dark. It's written by a guy named, it's a pseudonym, Nathan Ripley. He's a guy out of Canada. He writes under a pseudonym because he's written books before, but they're of a different genre. So sometimes authors do that to separate genres. I work with another guy, Ezekiel Boone, who's done the same thing. But this book, Find You in the Dark, is a really interesting take on a serial killer book. This guy who is a dot-com millionaire, is retired, a young guy, retired family man, who has this weird hobby of trying to track down bodies that have been buried by serial killers that the police haven't found yet.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's creepy. So it's an interesting read. Find You in the Dark, and that one comes out in June 19th. I don't know when you're airing this, but you can cut that out if June 19th has already passed.
Okay, and one more that's coming out?
One more that's coming out. All right, I'm giving you 2 that's coming out because they happen to be great books. Spymaster by Brad Thor, one of your favorites, I know. It's rare that an author in their, what is this, his 17th, 18th book could quite possibly have written his best. And I'm saying this as a fan and not as his publicist, because I am both.
Well, Ryan had very similar words to say, so the real book spy and you agree on this one.
Well, I actually spoke to Ryan, and after we both read it, and we had a conversation about it, and I believe I listened to your show. He stole some of my lines that I told him, but it's okay. I forgive him for that. But we agree that this is probably his, in terms of character depth and emotion, mixed with action and intrigue, this is his finest piece of writing.
That's pretty high praise coming from 2 different sources. So I think it was a given I was going to get this book anyway, but...
Yeah, this is going to be the one he's known for, I think. Spymaster. When you think of other authors, you think of their signature book. Like, say, for instance, I say Vince Flynn, what do you think of?
Memorial Day.
When I say, I don't know who else you're a fan of, but when I say Lee Child, what do you think?
I can't name a Lee Child's book, even though I've read several, but when I think Tom Clancy, I automatically think The Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, so when you think Brad Thor, I think in the future people are going to say Spymaster. I think this is the one he's going to be known for. Plus, the cover is some fine art. I mean,
the cover is fantastic. Now, I've noticed most thrillers, they seem to go in cycles. This year, with Brad Thor being an exception, a lot of the covers are featuring red, and there's a shift away from terrorism back towards Russia.
Exactly, and that's what my third book that's going to come out. I know I'm cheating. You only asked for 2, but Red War, the new Mitch Rapp book, the manuscript that I'm holding here across from you at this table in this coffee shop as I sip my coffee. Red War is the next Mitch Rapp book, and this one is Kyle Mills. I think this is the 4th one he's written since Vince passed away, and I think this one cements these characters. They're now his. I think Kyle Mills has taken this series for himself, and this is a good thing. As someone who was friends with Vince and worked with him and was a fan of his, it's a difficult thing to come to terms with, because you feel a little guilty on a personal level that someone else is imagine. I mean, it's a horrible analogy, but imagine your father died and you come home and your mother's new boyfriend's wearing your father's clothes. I mean, that's difficult, and that's kind of what this is like. But I really feel comfortable and confident that Kyle Mills has now taken, these are his characters now, and he cements that with this book, Red War, and it comes out in October.
All right, now you got to give me something that's already out.
Something that's already out, and you might be surprised, or you might not be because you don't know me, but Claire McIntosh is an author. She used to be a cop in the UK, and she writes these great, and I guess they'd be classified as domestic suspense novels. And she's written, I think, 4 of them now, but she's really very good. The stories are all plausible. They're really well written. It's not an 8-year book, but Claire McIntosh is an author, and if I'm going to pick one that you should read, it was her first one, and what was her first one called? It was called I Let You Go. Great book. Great story. Great book. Great characters. She's really good at it.
Outstanding. You got a second one for me?
Of course I got a second one for you. Just let me think about it for a second. The second book, and we're talking about books that are already out, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So you know what? You know who I like is Anthony Tata, AJ Tata. He writes the Jake. It's funny. I've only read it, so I've never said his name. Megan, the Jake Megan series. But he's a good writer. He's got a military background. He writes great thrillers like the ones that you enjoy. And he handed me this book at BanterCon last year called Direct Fire. It's really he writes good stuff. AJ Tata is his name. It was actually first recommended to me by someone who works for Fox News.
Wow. So what is the one thing an author can do that will just have you head in hands on the phone to them immediately going, you have absolutely lost your mind? You'll find out about something via social media that they did. What's that one thing that's just going to have you going, you didn't?
I'll tell you this, and luckily none of my authors have ever done this, but it's been done to my authors. And if I was that person's publicist, I would have called them and said, what the heck are you thinking? It is bad-mouthing another author in public. Don't do it. Don't ever do that. Looks bad. No purpose for it.
So, keep that behind the scenes with someone you trust.
Yeah. It is like we were saying before, the author community is a tight-knit. I mean, not how many people can share this same experience? Not many. I like to say it's probably just as hard to become a successful published author as it is to become an NBA player. It's that rare. And I think people in the industry should stick together and not fight with each other. So bad-mouthing another author or another author's books, I would get my author on the phone right away and say, you better apologize.
Okay. So that would be something you would highly discourage.
Yes.
And you don't want to see any of your authors badmouth them in public. Now, if they've got a dispute, take it up privately.
Exactly.
Now, you have to deal with a lot of Twitter stuff. Has there ever been a tweet or two, and you don't have to say who, that you just wish you could go through and erase from the mind of the world?
Yes, almost on a daily basis.
So you almost always wish you could reach into that Twitter account and go, this never happened?
Yeah, I mean, they're not egregious, but it's unnecessary. A lot of unnecessary tweets.
But you still want them to interact and have fun on social media.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But no unforced errors. Don't be stupid.
All right. That sounds logical to me. Now, you're very involved in the writers. Do you know much about their individual writing processes or how they focus and concentrate and how much research goes into each one of their books?
Yeah. The ones that have talked about it in interviews, and I've read or heard those interviews, I pretty much know. Or when they talk about it at events, like I said before, I'm a rarity. I've been at the same place since 2005, so I've worked with authors for dozens of books. So I've seen dozens of their signings, and I've heard them speak dozens of times. So in some cases, I could probably do the event for them and say the same thing. So yeah, if they talk about it, I probably know about it.
Well, I found this little excerpt rather interesting, and this is Brad Thor talking with Armin Schultz, and this was put out as a special after his book Full Black, and then a significant time later it became available on YouTube.
Well, to get the book kicked off, I have to turn in an outline of some sort to my editor, and I try to keep that outline as narrow as possible. Robert Frost was famous for saying, no joy in the writer, no surprise in the writer, no surprise in the...
Now, that no joy in the writer, no joy in the reader, can you tell when an author has forced the writing?
You probably can. I haven't experienced it, but you can definitely tell the author's headspace at the time of writing, in their writing. And the reason I say that is because the few books before Vince Flynn passed away, I think Mitch Rapp got a lot darker. And I think, this could also just be me knowing what he was going through and projecting it onto the character. But I feel like you could tell what the author is going through sometimes in their writing.
Okay.
So I tried once. I'm friendly with Dan Brown, and Dan once gave me a very, very exclusive the outline he had done for Da Vinci Code, and it was incredibly extensive. And I thought, maybe I should try this. And I outlined a book, and it took all of the wind out of my sails. It took all of the excitement, all of that surprise, as Robert Frost talked about. It was gone from me. I will do an outline where I know, okay, this guy's got 2 bullets in him. He's on this side of Bern in Switzerland, and he has to be at the train station in 10 minutes with the briefcase in his hand, and I don't know how he's going to get there. And that's how I know I'm in the zone, is when I'm having the experience writing the book that the reader is having reading it. When my palms get sweaty and when my heart starts pounding, that to me tells me I'm doing something right. I like to paint myself into a corner as a writer, paint my characters into corners, and see how they'll get out. So during the day, my goal is to do about 2,500 words, which is about 5 single-spaced. It normally takes me all day. I'll be in my office in the morning, and I won't leave till it's done.
Can you tell when an author starts just trying to put words on paper to get it done, and when they're not necessarily focused, or don't you see them that early in the process?
I don't see them that early in the process. I'm sure Emily Bessler, the editor, smooths that stuff over before I ever see it.
So, for example, the bound manuscript of Red War that you have in your hand, that is pretty much...
It's basically what's going to be the galley.
With the exception of, a typo here, a missing comma there.
Well, there might be typos or missing commas in the galley, but it will be the galley. It will go through a couple other edits before it becomes a hardcover.
Okay, so it's 99% what readers are going to get when they pick up Red War.
Let's say 97%.
Okay. Now, when you're dealing with that author that's in that headspace and they're not necessarily happy, you still have to promote them.
Oh, well, yeah. In the case of Vince, he was professional throughout. You would never... Yeah, it may have come across in the page, but he was so upbeat, you would never know what was going on with him. And most authors are professional no matter what's going on in their lives. So that's never really been a problem.
And I also noticed with Brad Thor, right around the time he was writing, when his wife had a child, Scott Harvath seemed to become a little more sarcastic and a little more sharp-tongued.
Interesting. Yeah. I would not be surprised. I mean, it seems to be human nature that when your life changes, your writing probably changes a little bit.
So what is your favorite part of the publicity, and what's the big celebration when someone hits high up on the New York Times bestseller list or gets that golden #1? What happens?
That is exciting. It's exciting when you get a big piece of media. When Brad Thor had his big feature in New York Times last year, it was like hitting a grand slam. That's a publicist's grand slam. I'm rounding the bases with a big smile on my face. It's exciting when that stuff happens.
So other than Brad Thor, what's been and getting that feature in the New York Times, what's been your biggest success? You have to have had another one.
Oh, I have tons of success every day, Jesse. Thomas Mullen getting NPR twice. Every time there's a book reviewed in the New York Times, it's exciting. When you get something in People magazine, it's exciting. The Today Show. I mean, there's tons. Thankfully, I get to have a lot of doubles and triples and home runs. I've enjoyed a lot of success, knock on wood that it continues. And a lot of that is because of the authors that I work with.
How hard is it when you're taking that no-name author and trying to push, they're willing to do the interviews and you think they'll do well with it. How hard is it to get this person that no one's heard of until you picked up the phone and called them? How hard is that to get them those interviews? Or does that come down to the personal contacts?
Well, it starts with the personal contacts, but it's still the personal contacts have bosses that they have to talk it into. So I talk someone into it, and I may get someone to buy into it, but they have to get someone else to buy into it also. So it's hard. It's a lot of work, and sometimes it doesn't happen in the first book. Sometimes it happens in the second or the third. But eventually it's going to happen, and it's so much fun when it does.
I mean, Jack Carr just seemed to come out of nowhere, and I saw him everywhere. I saw him on television. I saw his interviews pop up everywhere.
Yeah. He was a great person to work with. And a lot of times you have success once. I can use that success to show other producers to say, hey, look how good he is, and then they'll book him too. But there's still more hurdles to get over with him, more challenges. It makes it fun. It makes it really fun.
All right, so I've got one question before we cover social media contact information. Give me 3 quick do's for people who are aspiring to become well-published, well-known authors, and 3 don'ts.
Do write the best book you possibly can. Do surround yourself with smart publishing people who can help guide you through the process. Do join writing communities and engage with other writers of the same genre. Don't think that once your book is done, your job is done. Don't get discouraged when you're not reviewed in the New York Times or hit the bestseller list first time out. Don't swear off book signing events if no one shows up to your first book signing.
Well, I thank you for that advice. Now, why don't you give out any social media contact information you'd like?
I would like everybody to follow Atria Mystery Bus on Twitter. That's Atria, A-T-R-I-A, Mystery Bus, like it's spelled, like it sounds. And it's on Twitter, and it's so much fun. And we talk, we share reviews, we share pictures from events, we share interviews, and sometimes we launch investigations to try to shut down nasty galley salespeople on eBay. You're not allowed to sell galleys. Don't do it. And we shut you down.
All right. And I believe you have a book hiding somewhere for me.
Yeah, I would like you to take this book by Terry Hayes. He's Australian. He wrote Mad Max 2. He wrote Dead Calm, the movie with Nicole Kidman. And a few years ago, I think it was 2014, he wrote this big, massive epic called I Am Pilgrim. And it is one of the finest books that I've ever worked on.
Well, outstanding. So I thank you for I Am Pilgrim. Now, I'm going to remind everybody who wants to hang out with me, you can find me on Twitter at Radio Host Jesse. You can email me either at Jesse@KLRN Radio or my brand new email is Jesse@jessescoffeeshop.com. And I'm going to pour myself a fresh cup of coffee and settle down with I Am Pilgrim, and I will see you folks next time in the coffee shop.